Namaste everybody, Lisa Romano here, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and today I want to do a video about procrastination. I recently posted an Instagram and YouTube post about this idea of procrastination and why it's so difficult for people who have trauma in their backgrounds to complete projects. If you're like most trauma abuse survivors, at one point in your life, you may have found it difficult to finish a project that you started or to complete a goal. You may be really proficient at work. You really may be really good at finishing goals that are set for you at work, or when there is performance tied to a specific goal, when there is somebody observing you and making sure that you have to complete that goal, that might be easier for you to accomplish. For instance, if your friend just purchased an apartment or just purchased a home and you are pulled in to help this person paint their home, you show up every day that you're off to help them paint. You buy the paint. You're there from start to finish. You bust your butt to help this person accomplish their goal. But if it was your house, that you had to paint, if it was associated to you and only you, it might be difficult for you to complete that project. You might find it easier to help someone else follow a dream, create a goal, and then follow it through. But when it comes to paying attention to your own needs, that might be a very different story. And so I have a couple of theories that I want to share with you, and they've definitely helped me reframe how I see my own goals, and that is perception's everything, right? And so we have to be careful what we believe. We shouldn't all believe what we believe. If I believe that you're more important than I am, if I believe that I need my mother's approval, if I believe that I am not a good person or a good, religious person, if I am not doing for others until my knuckles bleed, if I believe that I am here to serve you and your needs, but I'm not here to serve my own, then it's going to be very difficult for my brain to work with me and get on board, because my brain is my operating system. My beliefs are actually the data that is allowing my body to be animated and is in control of my behaviors. So we really have to be careful about what we believe. We really have to be careful about judging ourselves from not finishing a project, because when we judge ourselves, we always experience shame. That's how shame works. And if you come from a dysfunctional family, or if you're in a toxic relationship with a friend or a loved one, or a spouse, a sibling, a parent, then I'm sure you can think back at times where shame was actually weaponized. How could you say that? Sane people don't talk like that. Who are you? Who do you think you are? What makes you think you can do that? What makes you think people are going to appreciate what you do? Who do you think you are? Blah, 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 right? And so what happens when someone judges you, you feel shame. And whoever's judging you from the outside understands that that could be weaponized against you, and they're either projecting their own lack onto you, because if you fly higher, they have to bend their neck to look up at you, and that makes them feel smaller. And so if they can tether you with the same type of shame, they can keep you in bondage. They have, misery loves company, right? So, when you fly higher, if you fly higher, then they're left alone in their own misery. They have less people to bounce this projection, this shame onto. And in addition to that, you also have the issue of them being so afraid that you will do well. And if you do well, that means that they have to check themselves. And that's not something that a lot of people who are below the veil enjoy doing, right? And so the goal is to find the hypocrisy in the self, and then to do what we can to diligently clear that up in our own vibration, right? Because when we do that, we become more evolved spiritually, and we help our children be able to heal shame and be able to be self-reflective, we have this idea of procrastination. We want to prevent ourselves from feeling ashamed of that. We want to recognize how our beliefs are really responsible for our behavior, and that a conscious thought, right, the will is not enough to win out over a subconscious belief. So if I'm still seeking your validation, if I'm at work and I'm seeking the validation of a manager or a boss, then I'll be really good at making sure that I do well and I perform well. But when I'm home, I might not make my bed. When I'm home, I might not cook myself a really good meal. When I'm home, I might let my laundry pile up. When I'm home, I might not clean out the tub after I take a shower. When I'm home, I might let the dishes pile up. When I'm home, I might not balance my, finances. When I'm home, I might not brush my teeth, right? Although there are people who will have terrific hygiene because they feel that, their hygiene is going to affect how other people receive them. But if they're not going to go out, right, then they won't get out of their pajamas. They won't brush their teeth. They'll procrastinate with self-care. They'll feel this low. And when they have a conscious thought about, wow, I really should get out of my pajamas and go for a walk, at least sit in the sun, they'll judge themselves because neurologically their brain isn't wired to get up and self-care. You have to love the self to self-care. And the less codependent you are, and the more you've healed from childhood trauma, the better it will be for you and easier it will be for you to self-care. A lot of us procrastinate with taking care of the self because of self-care issues. We're just not the priority. Everybody else is the priority. We might struggle with procrastination because we are so accustomed to engaging in behaviors that are other focused, meaning that we do things with the hope of being validated when we finish doing that thing, right? So I grew up with a mom who was an unrecovered, abused adult child of two alcoholic parents, very below the veil, very much catered and fond after my father. And she would struggle every day to make sure the house was pristine so that she could make him happy. So my mom lived, I really believe this, every day. How can I make him happy? How can I make him happy? How can I make him happy? Attention completely diverted from where it should have been flowing, which is towards herself and even towards her children. Everything was my dad. And so doing something for my mom, that wasn't even on her radar. And so if you asked my mom to complete a project for herself, it was almost impossible for her to do it. People would say, if you looked at my mom and said, you should do this, Pat, you should do that for yourself. She didn't have the neurology for it. Her belief system was take care of him, make sure that he's happy. And if he's happy, I'm happy. If he's happy, then I'm good enough. Manage his anger, keep the house safe. Don't let things get out of control everything. Don't spend money. That's going to upset him. Don't let the kids get too upset because that's going to upset him. He needs to feel like he's the king of the castle and his house is perfect. The kids can't act up, So it's my job to make sure that they're okay. But where was my mom in all of that? Where was she? Where was her individuality? Where did she exist in that? She didn't, right? She was an extension of this concept, this idea, this unconscious codependent mindset that she believed that she was here to cater to my dad. And until her dying day, she did. And getting goosebumps because I know in my heart the conviction that I have to help spread this message. It's not you, it's your programming. You are enough, and it's not your fault that you're born to an unconscious world with a mind that is dualistic. And our brain is programmable. And up until the age of 7, you are in a hypnotic brainwave state. And many of the beliefs and the behaviors that are running your life today come from your childhood. That's not your fault. That is not your fault. Part of the reason I believe that I'm so on fire with spreading this message is because people like my mom died below the veil of consciousness. She never really awakened, and if there was any consciousness around the idea that there was something wrong in her life and that was tied to alcoholism and codependency and narcissism and all of that, then it was too late for her, because she got so sick with MS and then had strokes and then she had dementia and then she had ultimately died of renal failure. It was just too late for her she didn't have the strength left in her to have to really push through. To push through, to awaken to this aha, oh my God, where have I been, is one thing, but to develop the skills necessary to stay on the awakening path, because every lion, tiger, and bear that you have been programmed to be afraid of shows up. And the good thing is that with the right tools, with the right knowledge, and the right information, you can continue on the path. It is easier for others and harder for others than it is for some, but it is possible to absolutely push on. You must want to heal from unconsciousness as much as you want and need to breathe, because that is what it takes to push through this unconsciousness. The mind is mostly unconscious. You can want something all you want, but that is your will. But in terms of energy, in terms of neurology, in terms of neuroplasticity, right? Epigenetics, in terms of all of it, you are going to need tremendous force in order to break through, in order to change and to shift the landscape of your mind. But it is possible. Knowing something's going to be difficult and accepting that it's going to be difficult makes things less difficult. If I go into a situation, oh, it's going to be a piece of cake, and I get in there and I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm overwhelmed. I'm triggered. I don't know how to manage the sensations that are coming up in my body. But if I know going in, this is all part of it. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard for me to finish a project. It's going to be difficult for me to recognize the shame. It's going to be difficult for me to sit still, to stay in my body and to not dissociate, and to stay in my body while I feel a feeling and process it consciously and allow it, focus on my breathing. A deep breath is a signal to the fight or flight response that you can turn off now. I've got this, right? So your body will flood with stress hormones until it receives the message that everything's calmed down, that there is no more fear. Think about it. Only a conscious mind can take a deep breath. When you're in fight or flight, your breathing changes automatically, right? What can change that and interrupt the fight or flight response is a really big deep breath. And another one. It absolutely interrupts the pattern of fight or flight. It interrupts the thought pattern that wants to slide into the rabbit hole. And what happens in one space happens across all space. So just like a bullet shot out of a gun will stay in motion until acted upon a force, a tree, you shoot a bullet into a tree, then the bullet stops, right? Then that's when the bullet will actually stop. It's the same thing with a thought. So I can have a bullet thought shoot out of my mind, right? I've been triggered, poof, this thought is released. That thought will stay in motion and connect another thought likened to itself. The energy of that thought likened to itself. That energy will get quantified, right? The fight or flight system feels even more stressed, even more panicked, more dumping of cortisol, more dumping of sugar, more vasodilation to my extremities and vasoconstriction to my torso. When you are in a fight or flight response, the blood flow through your torso diminishes. And so your gut gets interrupted. Think about, infertility issues. You need blood, right? In your root chakra, in your perineum, in your gut. You need blood and energy, oxygen flowing through your torso in order for your body to function properly. And when you are in fight or flight, the blood is in your brain and it is in your arms and your legs, readying for a fight. And so as we're healing from procrastination, part of healing from procrastination is understanding why some of us who have a trauma background could suffer from procrastination. If I have been taught that my pat on the head, which is what we're looking for, that pat on the head is connection. I don't mean it to sound like a bad thing, but think of it as a reward. So I am born, and part of the reward of being a human being is a human connection. And how do I connect with people? I feel seen by them, right? So what should have happened was we should have a natural sense of validation from our parents, right? So when parents see their children and they see worth in their children, they allow the children to see worth in themselves. They draw this worth and this connection to self out of them through seeing them. And so if I have been raised to believe that I am not worthy, I'm going to continue to seek that worthiness in outside experiences through other people. And so it'll be much easier for me to complete something that complete a goal if there is another person at the end of that finish line. But when there's no one at the end of that finish line, there's just me, right? There's just me. There's just me. That's my house. No one's going to pat me on the head and say, "Thank you for painting my house, Lisa." Right? It's my house. So in order for me to be able to set a goal and complete a goal, send the right email, make sure my finances are in control, get up and exercise, go to a yoga class, whatever it is, in order for me to beat the procrastination, then I'm going to have to understand that I am not biologically driven yet or unconsciously driven yet to do so if trauma is in my background. That's not my fault. A big downfall for us who suffer with procrastination and who have a trauma background is shame. I know what I should be doing, but I'm not doing it. I must be a terrible person, right? If we could just eliminate shame out of the equation and we can seek to self-understand, if we can offer ourselves self-compassion, if we can understand the inner child dynamic, if we can understand that we're wired to seek outside validation, and without that outside validation, right, to achieve a personal goal, it's going to be difficult for somebody who is accustomed to doing for others and who is accustomed to seeking the pat on the head from the outside person. It's going to be difficult for us to do for the self without an external validating source, an external source of validation. And so I feel, at least it's worked in my life and it's worked in the lives of many of the people I've coached, personally, as well as through my programs, and many of you on YouTube as well have written me and on Instagram and Facebook, that understanding why we do what we do is life-changing, right? Instead of just focusing on our output, which is our behavior, which is our anxiety. Anxiety is a symptom. Depression is a symptom. PTSD, a symptom. Nothing to be ashamed of if I have any of those issues to deal with. None of them are my fault. They're just a symptom. When I seek to understand my input, my output, my source, when I seek to understand the input that created the output, then I'm understanding the laws that govern this universe in a really big and magical way. Because this universe is cause and effect. It's cause and effect. So if you come from a dysfunctional home, there's an effect. That effect interrupts your ability to love yourself, put yourself first, take care of yourself, and self-love. That's not your fault. All of this procrastination is an effect, but you are not the cause of the said effect. However, because you are a conscious human being, you can change. You can input new information, and guess what? You can output a different behavior. And so I think that is worth talking about, and that's worth sharing with people. And because ultimately that's what enlightenment is all about. It's about waking up. It's about understanding the self. It's about understanding that not only is your mind dualistic, you are dualistic. You are both a mortal soul and an immortal soul. You are both beast, instincts, and spiritual at the same time. It's just absolutely amazing. You are physical, but you are also energy. It's just amazing. And when you can really appreciate the many facets of you, and you can work on these different areas, these different facets of you without shame, miracles can happen. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being dedicated to love and light. Thank you for expanding your consciousness. As you expand, you help expand the world. You help create a new world, and that is worth sharing and being really excited about. So thank you so much for being part of this conscious evolution forward. Namaste. Until next time. Bye for now.